couple of weeks ago, we did a video explaining what a body broker is and the unethical tactics that they use to procure bodies and sell them on for profit. Well, wouldn't you know it, another scandal has broken, this time in Texas. But there is an interesting twist to this case. Now, before we begin, we post death and dying related videos every Friday, so if that seems like your kind of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's talk the scandal at University of North Texas. Before we begin, just so we're all on the same page, the University of North Texas is a public research university located in Denton, Texas, USA. This is a city itself within the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, which I specifically mention because it is part of this whole mess. Now, even those of us not from the US know that Dallas is a massive city. It's not in megacity territory yet, but it is huge and it has all the issues that come with that. So NBC News led a 10-month investigation into the Health Science Center of the University of North Texas and how it managed to build up a flourishing business using thousands of unclaimed corpses, and released its findings this month. As we just said, big cities come with big problems, and it would appear that the unclaimed bodies cluttering up Dallas County morgues were becoming an issue. And by issue, I mean it was becoming expensive for the city to have them cremated and disposed of, and it was taking up time to do the right thing and see if there was any next of kin that could be found, since a lot of these bodies were of the homeless. So, in 2019, the Health Science Center and the Dallas and Tarrant counties came up with a brilliant solution and entered into an agreement that, until it was exposed, would have the Science Center receive 2,350 unclaimed bodies for their body donation program. Now, there are already a few ethical problems here. None of these 2,350 people consented to their bodies being used in this way. Also, many of them had family members looking for them, and many of the deceased could have been identified by their names, so it wouldn't have been all that difficult to track them down. But the county morgues hadn't bothered. Now, like any big city, Dallas has a substantial homeless population, a lot of drug issues, mental illness and poverty going on there. So the whole idea of let's send the poor for medical dissection is throwing up a lot of 1800s red flags. But if only that was the only issue going on here. See, of the 2,350 bodies the uni was given, they only decided to use 830 of them for medical dissection within their university program. Want to take a guess about what happened to the other 1,520? Oh yeah, they were sold for profit. $2.5 million worth of profit. The NBC gives the example of Victor Carl Honey. Now, Mr. Honey had been homeless on and off for 30 years, having served in the military for 10 years, and going on to suffer the inevitable mental health issues that come with that. Don't worry, we have learnt from last time. We will say nothing bad about the US military, and you can make your own decision about just how much they and the government they serve care for the people who are doing their bidding. But the point is that had the county, upon picking up Mr. Honey's body, done the bare minimum or even fingerprinting him, they would have noticed that he A, had a living family, and B, being a veteran, he was entitled to a free veteran's burial, so it wouldn't have been on their dime anyway. But of course that didn't happen. Instead, the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office gave his body to the uni's Health Science Center, where it was frozen, cut into pieces and leased out across the country. A Swedish medical device maker paid $341 for access to Honey's severed right leg to train clinicians to harvest veins using a surgical tool. A medical education company spent $900 to send his torso to Pittsburgh so trainees could practice implanting a spine stimulator. And the good old US Army paid $210 to use a pair of bones from his skull to educate military medical personnel at a hospital near San Antonio. I suppose the Army calls that recycling. Other names that came up in this investigation as buyers include industry giants like Johnson & Johnson, Boston Scientific, and Medtronics. Now, of course, all of them, including Johnson & Johnson and the US Army, who seem to keep popping up in these body broker scandals, well, they all denied knowledge that these were unclaimed bodies. Also, in response, the Army said it was examining its reliance on the centre and planned to review and clarify internal policies on the use of unclaimed bodies. Which is probably a good idea, since under federal contracts totalling about $345,000, the centre had provided the Army with dozens of whole bodies, heads and skulls and bones since 2021, including at least 21 unclaimed bodies. An Army spokesman said officials had not considered the possibility that the program hadn't gotten consent from donors or their families. Which is kind of hard to believe considering how many times the Army seems to pop up in these body broker scandals and claim that, oh, we never had a clue. And yet, it didn't mention anything about perhaps finding the pieces of Mr. Honey and giving him some sort of proper burial, or at least attempting to. The university also sent body parts such as skulls to other universities and high schools around the country. And while these were for lease, not for profit, staff at these institutions were still horrified when they found out their true source. Leslie Taylor, a University of Arkansas medical school spokesperson, said because UNT's office that provided the specimens is called the Willed Body Program, officials believed they were coming from donors who had willed their remains to education and study. When reading the NBC investigation, there's also the question of whether many of these bodies went to the coroner at all. Some of the evidence suggests that bodies of the destitute in the Dallas-Fort Worth region have been routinely collected from hospital beds, nursing homes and homeless encampments and sent straight to the Health Science Center. So a doctor may or may not have signed off on a death certificate. So if the death wasn't of natural causes, it could easily be faked to look like it. There are just so many questions and concerns that this situation brings up. The other question here is just how much morgue staff in the area knew what was going on. They obviously knew that they were sending unclaimed bodies to be dissected, and they knew they weren't bothering to even try to find next of kin, many of which had filed missing person reports for their loved ones. But as to whether they knew that the leftover bodies were being sold, that part is up in the air. So what's going on with the Health Science Centre now? Well, after reporters shared their detailed findings this month, the centre announced that it was immediately suspending its body donation program and firing the officials who led it. The centre said it was also hiring a consulting firm to investigate the program's operations. As a result of the information brought to light through your inquiries, it has become clear that failures existed in the management and oversight of the University of North Texas's Health Science Center's Willed Body Program, the statement said. The program has fallen short of the standards of respect, care, and professionalism that we demand. As for the Dallas and Tarrant counties who made the agreement, before the Health Science Center announced its deactivation, officials of these counties said they were reconsidering their agreements to send unclaimed bodies to the center in light of the reporters' findings. Dallas County commissioners recently postponed a vote on whether to extend the contract. The top elected official in the Tarrant County, Judge Tim O'Hare, said he planned to explore legal options to end any and all immoral, unethical and irresponsible practices stemming from this program. No individual's remains should be used for medical research nor sold for profit without their pre-death consent or the consent of their next of kin, O'Hare's office said. Both counties are scheduled to discuss the matter later this month. So another one bites the dust, folks. This is an example of making a logical but unethical decision. Yes, their reasons were logical. The counties were overrun with unclaimed bodies that were costing them a fortune, and the Health Science Center needed more bodies to train with. But they didn't consider the ethics, nor how close to home this issue is to many people. Remember, it wasn't all that long ago when it was legal for the poor and other discriminated against groups to have their bodies sent for dissection, no questions asked. It's telling those communities they don't matter. And before I say anything else that will piss off YouTube, go talk death.